Hello and welcome back to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brain. Something Positive for Positive People is a self-help resource for people living with herpes. Overall, it's a sexual health communications tool that gives people the hopefully confidence to be able to disclose their herpes status to partners and for people who are curious about the virus and navigating the stigma of it or dating relationships, healthcare. This is a good place for you to come and receive information that's going to help you with just communicating about it. All right, I guess like now that we got that out of the way, I mentioned herpes, and I'm I'm struggling a little bit with continuing to speak about herpes in a way that doesn't make me feel like I'm just enabling people to come through here and look forward to the next week's podcast episode and not go out into the real world and apply the stuff that is being learned, expressed, and taught on this podcast platform. Um, I don't know exactly what a shift would look like. I think maybe more of the solo podcast episodes that I've done, which, interesting enough, I hear more from people about those podcast episodes than I do about the herpes related podcast. And I don't know if it's just that the messaging has, um, it's just hit its peak and that's it. Like, we got enough here. But the audience isn't really telling me what y'all's needs are anymore. And so, yeah, it's really looking like I just need to continue to just do whatever feels right. And what feels right today is um, the title of this will be Me versus Me. And when you think it, when you say it, I want for you to plug yourself into that space of me. I don't want it to be you versus you, because then we can externalize that as well. I want for this to be something that triggers stimulation from within when you think it, when you say it. And as I go through whatever it is that comes out verbally through this podcast, for you to find whatever parallels match up for yourself. And so the reason that I wanted to speak to the topic of me versus me is because I've realized, I'm at a point of I've realized and decided to make changes, and I'm seeing it work for me. I'm watching the shit pay off. I've been in my own way for a lot of aspects of my life: relationships, friendships, work, my passion, hobbies, um, and work. All of these things I've been in my own way about. And it's taken for me to give myself permission to challenge the things that I assumed are the norm. And as I start to challenge things, it's funny what ways the stuff that I've been surrounded by makes its way into my range of perspective, like makes itself visible to me. Or maybe I just essentially clean my lenses so I can just see what was already there. Perfect example would be I play video games, right? And on Call of Duty, I know a lot of y'all probably won't really resonate with this, but if you are dating someone who plays Call of Duty, and you may understand the concept of killing the other team, like you gotta shoot the bad guys, right? So there's a mode on there that's like last team standing, and usually it's up to 4 people, and I play with my friends that I know in real life. So oftentimes, like I'll catch myself, like I want to bring them back because you can bring your players back to life if you have enough money, and you can go to a station where you spend the money and revive your players, your team. So you can do that, and like I would rely on them to get the win because oftentimes it comes at the cost of the enemies knowing where you are and you get the shit shot out of you, or you just die in this gas that's closing. Kind of like on Hunger Games, how the bubble shrinks until it's everybody on top of each other until the last person standing. So like lately, I've been challenging the belief that my teammates will get the job done and that I can't trust myself. And I made that decision to trust myself, and I did that shit, and I won like a few times, and I can't tell you how hype I was, right? So that's one example of me, getting out of my own way because it's my own belief. Like my teammates just want me to win the game. They don't care how I do it. Like they don't care that I bring them back to do it. They just want to win. So I had a belief that, oh, it'll be better if they do it. Like they'll love me for it. And that's kind of what my internal dialogue has been. So I offered that example to show you how it plays a role in my life, in addition to how I do things with something positive for positive people, because some changes are going to have to be made. And, that's just the reality of it. For so long, over the last 5 years, 5.5 years that I've been running this podcast, my ego has been something that I've tried to keep out of the mix. And I recognize that the more that I've tried to keep it out, the more that it's made itself like bigger. And what I mean by that is I don't charge people for anything. I don't ask people for money. Like I'll ask for donations. If you found value in this, like I invite you to make a donation. But as a nonprofit, we can accept donations. So just general kindness of people's hearts. And so I have not wanted to ask for donations, and I've had like a mental barrier to getting funding and asking for money, because this should be like a goodwill thing that people just want to support. And reality is like that ain't how the world works. I look at the amount of time and energy that I've put into something positive for positive people over all this time, and it's come at a cost. While it may not have been all money, like yeah, it costs to run the website, it costs to run the podcast, it costs to go and do these interviews, yeah, but the time that has been invested here, because now I have a job and I'm working part-time, and now it's come down to, okay, do I want to make money, or do I want to um, move my passion forward and still make money, right? And I'm finding myself more so going to work and investing more into work, and I'm feeling myself slip away from doing what I'm supposed to be doing with something positive for positive people, which is why I moved out to Oregon in the first place, so that I could progress something positive for positive people into a full-time business nonprofit organization that I'll be able to do more with, pay myself, and also be able to continue the mission moving forward. So I've caught myself like in the past having pride in being the only organization, the only person that serves people with herpes that doesn't charge people for calling, for like just talking to me, or coaching essentially, or giving people templates for disclosures. And that was something that I was really attached to and proud of. And it was in therapy, my therapist was explaining to me that I am the expert on what it is that I'm bringing to this space. My experiences, the experiences being brought to me, the surveys, the time that's going into it. And he was like, I cannot and will not really be able to help people if I'm not helping myself. I won't be able to have the kind of impact that I'm saying that I want to have if I'm not in a place to where I can provide that impact. So for instance, like 2020, I know I've said this several times now, but when the pandemic hit and I was getting an astronomical amount of money uh, compared to what I normally would get, I was paying for people to get therapy. And through that, I don't think I really talked about this, but there were several people who would miss sessions, wouldn't take it seriously. And through that experience, like I've learned that many people don't value things unless they have to put money to them, or unless they have some sort of skin in the game. Because when people hit me up, I'm like, oh, great. Like, here, I'll pay for you to get therapy. Like that doesn't work for a business sustainably. It also doesn't work for a nonprofit, regardless of like goodwill don't pay the bills. Like just flat out, this internet bill, these cell phone bills, the website, the IRS tax compliance, everything that I've done so far. Like thankful, I'm so thankful that there have been people who've donated, but also like things that I should be paid for, conferences, speaking engagements, trainings, that money goes straight to the nonprofit so that I can continue to do these things. And I'm able to not pay myself because now I have a job. And I was thinking about it. I was like, damn, if I didn't have this part-time job, like how much more would I have poured into something positive for positive people from this empty cup? And I'm catching myself in this space of being like I'm liking this, and it's not that I've gotten rid of my ego. Like there's still some ego there, and not in the traditional sense of oh my god I'm better than everybody because I'm doing more, or like I'm cocky, arrogant, and all that shit. But my ego in the sense of look how good of a person I am. Look how much people like me. Look how much people trust me, right? And it's my fault. Like I've conditioned the people who find me to um, not necessarily, value the time that we do have together. Like I got 5 years worth of interviews of things that I've said, and if people got questions, they can get them answered by going into that space and exploring that. And if there needs to be more of a personalized approach, like I don't care, like I talk to everybody. But I think that I've had this covert expectation that if I do good, good will be returned in the sense of, all right, I'm doing this. I did this for you for free. Hopefully, you consider making a donation so that I can do this for someone else for free. And that ain't how this works. I've asked, at the end of talking to people, if you found this helpful and you want to consider making a donation, please do. And I'd say about 50% of people I talk to have made a donation. Some people have said they would, and maybe they just haven't gotten to it yet. Maybe they forgot. But what I'm seeing is that there is more of a need for me to value my time. And I've always been the kind of person who I have essentially lowered my way of living so that I have more for myself to live. So, for example, I sold my car, which means I'm not paying 300 whatever dollars a month. I don't have to pay $200 in insurance. I don't have to pay for gas. Like that's about $700 right there. I moved in with somebody where rent is significantly like all of my living expenses are just into one monthly payment. So I pay this much money a month, and that includes the internet and everything for me, and that's clutch for me. So I have minimized my way of life, and I've found much more joy and pleasure in living that life through being able to like travel. Like I also don't drink near as much as I used to. I mean, I might drink once or twice a month at this point. And with doing that, I'm seeing how much money I've saved, and I'm seeing what I'm able to do with the money that I've saved. And like, I enjoy traveling, and I wasn't moved enough by just doing good and goodwill and sacrificing, my livelihood just so other people can have a little bit of livelihood for themselves. Like, that didn't motivate me, that didn't move me. It was until I put myself in this situation and like I'm like, yo, I gotta this is a lifestyle change. Like I enjoy traveling. I'm enjoying the experiences that I'm having. Like I'm about to leave the country for the first time. So my cost of living is going up because I have now become acclimated or accustomed to a lifestyle that like I want to indulge in more and I want to experience more. Like I'm going to Berlin and I want to go to Canada. I want to go to Australia. I want to see these places. I want to meet up with, the people that I've been becoming friends with through social media. And in order for me to do that, like I have to either work more at where I work at, or something's going to have to change like business wise and structure wise for the amount of time that's going in here, because I'm liking traveling a lot more than I'm liking, getting blown off by people on podcast recordings, getting rejected for applying for funding and grants, then having to follow up with people about commitments that they made and making donations. I'm really, it's not burnout. It's just I don't know. I would be curious to know what the opposite of burnout is. I don't have that language right now, but whatever the opposite of that is what I'm inspiration, maybe. Like I'm inspired and I'm motivated by the ability to go and do things that I'm enjoying. And not to say that I don't enjoy the podcast, but it's like, why would I continue to endure those things when I can go and enjoy and experience these things, the things of that come with the experiences of traveling, right? So, I mean, that all said, like, I'm unsure exactly how to structure this, but someone gave me some guidance on how to do that. Like, hey, here's a recommended donation amount. Here's what the donations like at $200, you'll be able to pay for someone to have a cluster of sessions of therapy. At this much money, you'll pay for whatever, and just like go down the list. But, I look at everything that I do, and when I find the mean, I don't know if you remember the mean from from algebra class or something, but it's like the average of the jobs that I do. And when I sat down and looked at it, I was like, damn, dude, I really don't value myself, and therefore people don't value me. And so I am the podcast host, podcast editor, podcast producer. I'm the social media manager, content creator. I'm the coach. I talk to each and every person who reaches out. I'm essentially like the librarian of the Something Positive for Positive People archives, directing people to specific episodes, oftentimes like just even having a conversation with them. I'm still the executive director of a nonprofit organization. I'm the marketing director. I'm the founder. I'm also like the secretary because I organize all of the board meetings. I'm the cold caller for these healthcare organizations where I'm reaching out about working together on the practice simulations with sex educators that I mentioned. I'm the person who's applying for grants. I'm the person who's doing every piece of the administrative role. I'm keeping up with the budgets. I'm the marketing director. I'm tracking all of the donations. I'm constantly seeking donations as well as funding. I'm the one that's going to the conferences and the speaking events, applying for them, looking for them. And when you average all of those jobs out, like that's at least a dozen roles that I just mentioned. That's 12 roles. And now looking at, the amount of time that's gone into that versus what's coming out of that amount of time, like I'm here to express to y'all like why there's going to be structural changes, because I can't continue to operate this way. And if I do, then Something Positive for Positive People won't continue to exist as Something Positive for Positive People. My board member's been on my ass for years at this point. Is it 3 years? It's 2022. Yeah, the 3 years that Something Positive for Positive People has been a nonprofit, they've been telling me, yo, you need to pay yourself, Courtney, you need to pay yourself. And again, back to the ego thing. Like my ego would not allow for me to get paid. And this is where the me versus me comes in, because I really had to sit with that. Well, what is it that I'm getting out of not being paid? I'm liked. I'm like more popular. I'm different than the other herpes coaches or people who post social media content and they're like, here's how much my coaching is. Like I looked and I seen people charging $600, $300 for a 20-minute conversation. And I know that people are paying for it because people reach out and they're like, wow, I paid this much for this person and I didn't get near as much of value that I got from talking to you. I'm like, oh, that feels great. Yay, you like me. That makes me feel good. But again, like being liked, that person got $300. Like they can go to that's a round trip flight to San Diego from where I'm at, and then some. And meanwhile, like I'm just being liked. So I had to really break down what's important to me and get out of my own way for working my way into the space of getting what's important to me. So that said, like my values are still what my values have been: liberation, peace, evolution. And so this is a moment where I'm evolving. This is a moment where like I'm recognizing that there's an inner conflict and chaos because I felt for so long that, if people don't like me, then that's going to be a bad thing. If I tell people, hey, I'm asking for money here for this service that you're asking me for, feeling a little bit of guilt about that. And someone said to me, it was actually, I was having a conversation with Stephanie Zapata and Justine. I always mess up her last name. But these are two sex educators of color. And we were talking about how me not knowing and speaking to and charging for what my worth has is a way of like upholding the status quo in terms of oppression and missing out at a seat at the table. I wish I could remember the exact words because when they said it, as I was like bells and whistles went off in my head, y'all. It went off in my head, and I got to see that because even with the last, I spoke at a conference. I have a training come up. I asked for a lot more money than I normally would have, and there hasn't been any resistance. Like one of the organizations is already, we got the paperwork in place, so I know that I'm going to be paid for that. And it was just like, wow, this switch just flipped, and here I am. And I'm not going to say like for people who, you clearly can't afford what it is that I'm going to be selling in a sense or whatever. Like I want for this to be accessible to everybody. And that's been a big reason why I've not put up any kind of a paywall. So the podcast is going to continue to be free because there's a lot of very useful information in the podcast. Anybody who reaches out, like I'm gonna talk to you. Like we'll have our conversation. I'll support you in whatever way, and I'm always gonna ask. Like I recommend or suggest a donation amount. Now, if we need to revisit, like getting Courtney's advice, if we need to talk about more stuff than what's in the free resources that are out there, y'all, I got 5 years worth of content. 5 years from podcasts, from oh, you have herpes, well, my legs don't work, episode 1, up until episode numerically 247 with Lean Into Your Insecurities with Safe Slut, to this podcast episode 248, Me Versus Me. And there's bonus episodes in between there. So there's roughly 270 podcast episodes of useful information that is out there for the entire world, the internet to receive, take in, put to use, and also like share. I'm seeing that people also don't, share the information, and like I understand, I get it, but I at something positive for positive people ain't making no progress forward if people aren't willing to share this useful resource that people are claiming is so helpful to them. And, again, going back to the value thing, people have a significant higher amount of value in what they put their money towards, what they put their focus to. Like, people will be like, oh, I'm having the time of my life at this bar. They got the best burger. The beers are cheap. And I'm having this 1 hour experience that, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to have that replicated over and over and over again. So let's say that $25 you spend on a burger and a couple of beers, you at that bar 3-4 hours, you socialize, you have a good time, you leave, you're gonna do that same thing somewhere else. You might come back, but the experience that you have isn't going to be something that really factors into your overall quality of life. And here we are with this podcast and like supposedly life-changing conversations that I have with people, and I don't get that kind of praise. I don't get people shouting from the mountaintops, something positive for positive people, saved my life, changed my life. I was suicidal. I got diagnosed with herpes, and I had a conversation with Courtney Brame. Courtney Brame is doing amazing work. I would love to see him succeed. I would love to see his organization grow and expand, and for the CDC to partner with him and support his work, for healthcare providers to use something positive for positive people as a resource. I don't get that. And being on the other side of it, like if I were a listener of this podcast, if I were someone who engaged with me and can honestly say that, my life was changed after a conversation that I had, like I give people their flowers. I listened to a podcast episode, Royal Fetish, this morning actually, and hearing Jet Setting Jasmine and King Noir talk about sexuality in the black community and like how bisexuality is viewed, and speaking to like exploring your sexuality. Like that's a very taboo topic. Like that's the closest thing I have to a white person who gets diagnosed with herpes, and to compare as a black person who is like, okay, am I too queer to be considered straight, or am I too straight to be considered queer? Where do I belong? Is queer stuff white people shit? Is my manliness and masculinity something that is challenged by the fact that I'm non-monogamous, or that I'm into kink and BDSM, or that I'm in open relationships? And how does that conflict with my blackness? Like, asking these questions within the black community and challenging your own blackness and sexuality is taboo. To everyone who's non-black, having herpes is taboo. Like, here I am at the cusp of both of those things. And so like for me, that inverse of uh, being on the receiving end of some very useful content. And like, I just enjoyed the conversation. I posted that shit to my Instagram. I put the podcast episode in there. I posted that shit to my Twitter. I'd even posted on Facebook. In fact, like, I might do that next. Like, the only reason I didn't was because it just didn't cross my mind until now. And I don't know if I can tag them on Facebook if they're on Facebook. But that's where I'm at. Like, that's how supportive I am of the things that I consume, appreciate, and enjoy. And with that being said, like, I don't want to pressure people to do that, because I understand that everybody's at a different place with their herpes diagnosis, and to say that we sought out help, like, that's unheard of. That's taboo. That's a sign of, quote, weakness, or that's not something that we're supposed to do. And so what I'm presenting here is an opportunity for you as a listener to get out of your own way. Look at this as it's me versus me. Because if other people don't know what we're going through, how can how can they be obstacles? How can they help us? How can they be supportive? Right? And if this is something that's helpful to you, like, this is how we connect with people. I can't tell you, like, since putting myself out there, I'll give you this example. I went to, there's a dating app here, well, that people have access to. And this dating app has been doing in-person events. And I've been going to the in-person events. And I've had at least four people for sure who have started conversations with me, saying that they follow me on Instagram, and that they've heard or listened to my podcast, and they've shared their stories with me about having tested positive for herpes, right? And so there are people who are in the spaces that we're in, and we're sharing. Like, you could be the person that somebody might follow you. You share something that you found useful on the Something Positive for Positive People platform, whether it be the podcast, whether it be a post on social media, whether it be a lesson or a nugget from the conversation that you've had with me, whether it be even therapy. Like, y'all, I've paid for people to get therapy, and this is out of my pocket and with some donations. And these people will never tell a soul that therapy was so useful to them, and that they came to Something Positive for Positive People. I should be getting referrals out the ass for people coming here, beating down my door to get a therapist. Like, that's the reality of it. And I'm getting like a little bit passionate. I don't want y'all to think I'm bitching at y'all as listeners who haven't taken any action or supported, but this is more of like a call to action for you to, again, look at this as a me versus me thing. In what ways are you in your own way? In what ways can you remove yourself and get out of your own way and start to refocus, reshift, readjust whatever it is that you're focused on, where your money's going, where your attention is, and bring that into yourself. I was having a conversation with one of my friends who's a life coach, and this was something that I said to her. I was like, yo, I think that what you do is you do a really good job of, taking a person's focus. Like, they might be focused on drugs and alcohol. They might be focused on pursuing and prioritizing relationships. You do this thing where you very well redirect their spotlight where they're focusing from that thing, and you show them what they could be focusing on if they were to give a little less attention to that thing and apply that same quality of attention to something else being themselves. And I keep talking about this whole self thing. I talk about self, like the process of becoming self. It's not like it's a working definition right now. And I look at it as self discovery, self exploration, self awareness, self education, self expression. All of these things are components of reconnecting with the self, yourself, and identifying what that is and who that is by uncoupling yourself from whatever things just no longer serve you. So if you find yourself very strongly resonating with or identifying as a man, because this is what I'm dealing with, my masculinity, like I'm reverse engineering what masculinity means to me, uncoupling the things that haven't worked for me throughout my life, and I'm defining what it means to be masculine for myself. And as I do this, I hope that me putting it out loud on display is supporting other people. But like this is again, like this is the free shit that I'm doing. Like I have again a dozen job titles, y'all, a dozen of them things. And then I also have a part-time job that fortunately is paying the bills and supporting me in transitioning into this lifestyle that I'm starting to like so much, that involves more traveling, less drinking. So I talk about my own greatest insecurity. My greatest insecurity has been my finances. And I mean that in the sense of like, it's been my greatest insecurity, even above herpes, y'all. And that says a lot, because if you're listening to this podcast, you're more than likely someone who has herpes. And if you don't, I'm glad that you're here because you're learning. And the insecurity of herpes has no value in reference to my insecurity about how much money I have and my income. And I've really leaned into that. Like I fucking moved to Portland, y'all, with $5,000. I had $5,000, 2 suitcases. I didn't even have a place to live at one point when I was making the decision to move here. And getting out of my own way, that negative self-talk, like that voice shut the fuck up once I made the decision and once I committed, once I was intentional about it. I didn't know that I was going to get the $10,000 grant that I had to live here in order to qualify for. And I didn't find out about that until damn near 6 months after I moved here. Like I didn't get that until then. But the second day that I was here, I get presented this opportunity for a part-time job. I took that shit, and like from there, the financial insecurity started to dissipate. But like it was a point, man, I was looking at my fucking bank account and I was like, yo, I'm finna have to move back home. I'm finna have to do something else. But I got here. One of my board members, her partner he was renting out his place. His tenant just happened to have been moving out the day that I was moving in. And we were able to just smoothly transition that over. I mentioned, getting that part-time job. The funding finally came through a few months later. And like, I sat on my ass. Like I had to make decisions. I like going out drinking and dancing and partying and trying to hook up with people. I fucking love that shit. But I had to put that on pause because it was more important to me to be successful here than it was for me to be drunk, have a hangover, maybe get laid, maybe not get laid. That became much more important to me. And again, me versus me. I'm moving things out of the way that don't serve me. Again, uncoupling my identity from habits, patterns that aren't even mine. Like behaviors that ain't even mine, y'all. Uncoupling myself from those things has been life changing. It's been game changing. Game changing. And so, now, this is more of like a prereq, like a heads up, like things are going to be changing because they have to. And I'm not, like the ego thing. So I want to like clear that up here too, because I caught myself like really conflicted about what things are going to look like from an ego perspective. So it was very egoic of me to think that I can run a business without making any money. It was egoic of me to think that I'll be so liked that someone will just come along and want to just, handle the behind the scenes stuff or something positive for positive people that want to just give me money because they like what I'm doing so much. And that ain't the reality. The reality is I am blocking people from being able to see the value and my worth of running this organization. There are social media influencers out there. Information is free. Like, y'all can get the information anywhere. But what's being offered here is something that's so much greater than that. Like, if you want to just consume information, do that. However, like, I have to now place value on my time for the exchange of information in a way that it's supposed to be applied practically for you to not need to keep consuming information. We live in a time, y'all, where capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, all these buzzwords that are floating around the sex education space, social media. The only way of challenging this shit is for us to be able to explore our own pleasure. And I think it was Bell Hooks who said that. Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, these are two names that have recently come into my realm of perspective that really resonate with a lot of what I'm speaking to about identity. And they've been talking about this, before I started talking about this. So maybe there was something that sparked the thought process within me that they've done. And here we are, like, now as I do this, I'm getting names, I'm getting language, I'm getting words. And for us to not continue to just consume and become producers and creators, like, that's what something positive for positive people is. You don't come here to be down and beat yourself up and feel bad and, just get a little bit of a itch scratched for your herpes support or maybe your nihilism or to have reassurance that you ain't crazy. Like, because some of the stories on here are dark and scary, and people put themselves in uncomfortable situations. But at the end of it all, like, we're all positive people. We all have that capability of going out into the world and living it in the way that we choose to. Are you going to? And if you've been somebody who listens to this shit every day or every week for the last 5 years, or if you're new here and you're just binge listening through episodes and you find yourself here, ask yourself what you want out of this. Ask yourself how, if you are you even in your own way when it comes to looking at the possibility of being able to have the kind of relationship you want, career you want, passion that you want, you know? Like, let's talk. Like, let's talk through this shit. And let's also put it into practice. Like, I gotta be more mindful of my time, y'all. And I've finally come to a place of recognizing what my worth is. And now I have to really be able to communicate that to y'all being the consumers of this content, because I want for y'all to be able to become producers of your own shit. I want for y'all to become your own advocates. I want for you to be able to take this and apply it. So if we never have a conversation, then that means I did my job. That means you came here, you got what you needed, and you left. And if I am going to do my job, then that means that if you need more than what this podcast has to offer, reach out to me and we will work together. This is going to be work. This is going to be something I'm going to ask for you to take inventory on whatever your priorities are and go from, continuing to focus on, give attention to, and invest in the thing that isn't giving you something to something that hopefully will give you something. And like, I'm not bitching. It's just a realization that I had, and I'm constantly being pushed by the universe in these different directions or in the same direction of, Courtney, you need to pay yourself. Courtney, you need to know what your value is. People don't value the services and the resources and the time that goes into it. Y'all, looking for a therapist is hard. Do you know how many people I've looked for therapists for? And again, for free. And I'm losing money doing it. I'm paying for the shit. And it's ridiculous, to say out loud now, but that's that's the case. That's been the case. This is what I do. I fucking love what I do, but I recognize how easy it is for me to slip into old behavior patterns, to potentially fall out of love with this, and not necessarily in the way of, oh man, I'm bitter. Ain't nobody giving me money. Ain't nobody paying me for what it is I'm doing. Nobody appreciates me. People like me, but it's a thing. Like, do I want to be liked more than I want to be respected? Nah, I want to be respected more than I want to be liked. And this is hard for me to say. All of this whole podcast itself is very hard. It's challenging. It's vulnerable because I haven't had to speak like this, and I've blocked out for so long the thought processes of it. But like, man, dude, like, woo, running a business. If you somebody who runs a business, like, shout out to you. If you somebody who thinking about running a business, like, be committed. You gotta commit to this shit. This is not easy. And it's long days, it's long nights, it's long hours. It's, you might need to take naps. You may not even be able to sleep. I had a day, I got in at 2 a.m. because my flights was delayed. I got to sleep a little bit on the plane. I got home at about 3:30. I still had to brush my teeth. I had to wash my face. I had to get some sleep. I had to get up early. I had to do um, a podcast. I had to do an intro call. I had to go into work. I had to go to physical therapy. I made a commitment for something right after physical therapy ended, y'all. I was exhausted, but that's part of what it means to run a business. That's part of what it means to literally pursue your passion and to um to really commit to this shit, man. Like, it requires, the know-how and tools of running a business. So I am asking of y'all. I'm not doing well in the social media department, censorship, and the fact that I talk about sex, sexual health, sex education. A lot of us sex educators are, and yes, I'm calling myself a sex educator too now. Like, this is what I'm doing. I'm educating people about sex. No, I don't have a degree in sexuality. I got 5 years experience of interviewing people about their sex lives, 270 whatever podcast episodes at this point you can listen to online. The information is out there, it's available, it's accessible, but like, I'm tired of fucking people making me, or me making myself, because ain't nobody else doing it, me making myself feel, less than, just because I haven't taken the same route. And people tell me, like, oh, maybe you should go to school, you should become. No, because that's not where people are. Like, the people that I'm serving are not in the academic space. The people that I've gone to support groups with, who I'm engaging with, I'm talking to, I'd be too focused on school to be able to ever connect with y'all. And the stuff that I'm learning in school, or would learn in school, would be shit that is so far disconnected from um, the current state of where we are, that it wouldn't even be useful to y'all. All I would be doing is going to school, looking at history, bringing that into the present space, and trying to apply that to what's happening now. Yeah, we don't need that. We need presence. We need motherfuckers here now that are going to show up, do the work, put the work in, and also be able to support themselves, and also be able to continue to have an impact on the world. And that's me. Like, that's where I'm standing. Like, I'm putting my fucking feet down, and I'm doubling down on, and putting my fucking feet down on that something positive for positive people is the go-to organization for people who are living with herpes. Hands down. Like, this is where you go. This is where you find yourself. This is where you get the useful information that you need. This is where you have your identity validated. Here's where you learn to have an anti-stigmatizing approach to sexual health communication. And this is where you learn about sex positivity, and you learn from other people's experiences about how they're navigating the stigma of living with herpes. And for so long, man, I've been, again, in my own way, because I've tried to mold the messaging into places where it doesn't, it belongs, yeah, but it's not what it is. And I've dumbed it down to being about mental health, allyship, stigma, um, mental health. I said mental health already. And what was the other thing? Like HIV, curable STIs. The reality is, I interview people with herpes. This is self-help for people who might have found this resource because they were struggling with herpes stigma. and I haven't been true to that, and that's my fault. I've devalued the worth of my product and service so much that other people don't value it. And it's not a big deal to the CDC, the National Coalition of STD Directors, because it's not a communicable or reportable, whatever the word is, disease. And that's my fault because over the last 5 years, I've tried to wiggle my way in and be like, well, look, like we talk about HIV and chlamydia, bam, herpes. It don't work like that. That covert shit ain't working no more. So I'm making noise in this space as a fucking herpes education advocacy platform that, this is what we can use as a way of learning how to communicate about our sexual health. Because all in all, that's what this is. That's what this started as. That's what it's going to be. And so when I'm starting to present at these conferences or speak to these things, like I've been validated in that, Courtney, you do a great job talking about herpes. Why don't you have like keynote speeches at these organizations? Because it's affected, so many people are affected by it. Like I've got nurses, healthcare providers, and people who are just like, they're at work behind the scenes and they share with me, oh, this person said this thing and it made me feel bad. And some people are like, hey, I dropped your name. We got this resource that uh, we put out for something positive for positive people. We want to work with y'all. Like, yes, I love that shit. Like, I need more of that. But I have to, be able to reward action. And the rewarding of the action is going to come at the cost of something. Like, we're going to have to, we got to start doing something. Like, again, I'll talk to anybody for the first time. If you reach out and you got your questions, you want to talk, like, let's do that. Like, we'll conclude that conversation, but like, after the initial one, like we gotta talk about a payment. We gotta negotiate payments, and I don't care at this point. Like I'm caring less about what other people think of me and more about what I think of me. And I'm starting to feel bad about myself for not acknowledging what my worth is and upholding my own boundaries in relation to being able to run this nonprofit. Because like yeah, like I said, I got a part-time job and that money is like that's my money. And I'm taking that shit. I'm going traveling. I'm taking care of myself. I'm feeding myself, and I'm enjoying myself. And here I am with a whole organization that I can also do the same thing for myself and other people if I just run this shit like I know to run this shit, which is a business. Something positive for positive people is a business, and I ain't treating it like one. I have not been treating this shit like a business, y'all. And if I um sorry, I had to log in the website because I'm about to upload this podcast like right now before I leave because I'm about to go to work. This is my life. Like I'm happy. Hold on. That ain't right. I don't even know the password. Oh shit. And that's another thing, keeping up with the passwords, right? But this is me versus me. I've had to look at where I'm focusing my attention and then decide where I want my attention to be focused. And I'm bringing it into myself. I'm bringing it more into something positive for positive people because I am spending way too much time at my part-time job, like flat out. I should not be spending this much time going back and forth to this job. I love it. I love what I do. I'm enjoying myself, but I moved here to run something positive for positive people, and it's slowly but surely, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it work its way into the back burner because like I'm thinking like, oh man, if I pick up a few more hours, I can make no, and I don't want to fall into that trap. And a friend of mine, like we have conversations pretty regularly about what our goals are, what our intentions are, and where we are in terms of feeling stuck or what we need work wise, money, life, and yeah, like I'm catching it. I'm catching us in this space of becoming complacent or like wanting to adjust our lifestyles in a way that allows for us to just continue to do what we're doing rather than doing more of what we love doing. And that's really what this is about, man. And I hope that y'all respect that. I hope that y'all acknowledge that. And I hope that if, you are unable to pay for whatever it is that you need, that someone will have paid it forward, or that you're able to find what it is that you're looking for through the website, through the resources that I share, um, or through the initial conversation that we have. Because I gotta put value to this, because I'm seeing people like I can't keep doing this to myself, and it's eating me up and making me feel like less of a person, because I'm not putting into practice like what I'm telling y'all to do. I'm telling y'all to know your worth, and then don't settle for anything that's less than what your worth is, right? How I'm gonna sit up here and not do the same shit. I had a friend of mine once tell me, he was like, "Do you listen to your own podcast?" And I just kind of made like this dumb face. I was like, "Damn, I know exactly what you mean when you say that. You mean that I'm not practicing what I preach. You mean that I'm out here essentially living a life of hypocrisy." So I'm setting the price. Jay-Z said, just set the price on niggas and live your life, my nigga. And that's exactly what Courtney got to do. So all this said, this was not a very herpes in-depth detail podcast. I just spoke to myself leaning into my biggest insecurity, which happens to have been my finances, and come out of the other side of this in a way that, like, I've uncoupled my identity with my finances and my worth based on how much money I make. And I'm seeing that it's not about that. It's just about knowing what your worth is, respecting that, honoring that, and practicing um, receiving from that place, like receiving what you are worth, because anything less than that, you're being taken from. Okay? So I hope that this was a useful episode for you. I'm going to continue to do the podcast from this place of just like genuine offering. Like, this is my genuine offering to the world, to the listeners. And I ask that, you ask yourself, you versus you, me versus me, right? I want you to say that, me versus me. What's the obstacle that's keeping me from supporting something positive for positive people and being the next American Red Cross in terms of size and how big it is and what it does? Because therapy is a big fucking deal. Like, I don't think people realize this, but I pay for people to get therapy, and therapy is such a hot topic right now, and it's so needed. But like, ain't nobody saying that. Like, people don't even know. People don't know I got a podcast. People only know I got an Instagram. People don't know that I provide this service. People don't know they can donate. People don't know it's a nonprofit. And like, I'm speaking to it. I'm just talking to people who already know this. So it's all so common that, like, when new people find me through one of these ways, one of these formats, it's almost as if like, that's it. Like, they find me, and that's the extent of it. But like, I want to challenge you to get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. So like, if you want to utilize me for services, we can talk about that. Like, inquire. You can email me, message me on Instagram. Like, we can talk about, and we can talk about what it'll look like, what it is that you need. Because if you just listen to podcast episodes, like, yay, I'm glad that helps, but there's so much more work to be done. And I'm putting my shit out there for y'all to be able to see the work in action and being done. Hopefully, you're able to have this experience parallel your experience, so that you can do better for yourself. All right? So, me versus me. Thank you for listening. Share the podcast. And I'm Courtney Brame _ on Instagram, TikTok. I'm on Twitter at Cortonius. Just Cortonius. That's like my philosophical name. But I'm just having fun on Twitter, expressing opinions and shit like that. But yeah, I appreciate y'all. Oh, yep, time for me to go. All right, until next time, stay sex positive.